Good evening and welcome, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is basically a rebroadcast of the live stream, which we gave earlier this evening, or earlier today, rather, at noon Eastern Daylight Time. And we are basically just doing this live stream as a summary of the information that we presented earlier in the day. We wanted to make a live stream for our friends in Europe so that they could also tune in. But as it seems, we see that there's no one actually watching this live stream right now. So we don't know, perhaps the notification didn't go out on Facebook or what have you. So, someone's finally joined us. So welcome, and welcome to tonight's summary restream or rebroadcast of the live stream, which we did earlier today. Now, originally, we were just going to play that live stream, and just restream it directly from StreamYard. However, the limitation of the software is that we can only do 1 hour of restreaming from something that we did the same day. So what we are going to do is walk through the same presentation we did and try to see if we can refine it and see how quickly and how in how short a time we can get through the material that we're covering. And this is really as much for our benefit as it is for everybody else, because we need to refine this message, and the more often we give this presentation, the more we will be practiced in the presentation of the material, and the more refined the message will become, like polishing a diamond or working any sort of sculpture or any sort of work has to be repeated over and over and over again. Practice makes perfect, as it were. And the more we can practice with live streaming, the more we will become familiar and comfortable with the technology, the more refined the presentation will become, the tighter everything becomes. So we will try to make this short and sweet this evening, because we did 3 hours last night and we did 3 hours at noon today, and we have to remain cognizant of our own energy levels. We don't want to burn ourselves out, because there is a long way to go with the Attlas project. The end times are upon us, and it's going to require a great deal of energy and focus and concentration to be able to make it through these difficult times ahead. And it's not going to be worthwhile for anyone if we burn ourselves out on these live streams. So again, the goal here tonight is to try to not rush through anything, but remain brief, concise, and try to get to the point, and also try to refine the message as best as we can so that we can offer a more compact, refined, polished message. And as we said, follow through and practice makes perfect. And this channel is called Attlas Information because it's informative, but it's also the formation of the Attlas project, and it's our ability to repeat the message for those who have not heard it, but also, again, for our own benefit in the So let's begin then with our presentation, and we're going to begin from the beginning. We're going to begin with nothing and the 0 point of nothing, this 0 point of stillness, of nothingness at the center point. And the law of zero unfolding the law of one as something radiates outward from nothing. And we get positive one. This is the first masculine impulse of radiation outward from nothing into something. This is the first mystery, the mystery of something, and that is, how is one thing everything? Because in order for a radius to create the circumference of the circle, it must pass across an equator. And as it passes that equator, it must become something else. So the law of one unfolds a second time, and we see that radiation happens bidirectionally. So as out of nothing, one radiates in one direction into something, a negative one radiates into its inverse, the inverse of something. So we have positive one and negative one. And now the two radii become a diameter. And everything exists diametrically in duality. So everything is defined by the circumference of the circle. So two radii expanding out to 2 points creates a diameter, which defines the circumference of the circle. So the limits, the upper limit and the lower limit. So the North Pole and the South Pole, etc. So this, the law of one unfolding into the law, unfolds into the law of two then. The law of opposites, polarity, symmetry, duality. Polarized radiation creates diametric opposition. So we have positive one, negative one, and zero. But there's a problem with everything, and that is the origin appears separate. The center is separate from the circumference. And how is that possible? How could the origin be separate from everything? How can the origin of everything be separate from everything? And the answer is, of course, it can't. So the law of two unfolds twice more. So the law of one unfolds once more to create the law of two, and the law of two unfolds twice more, which means the law of one unfolds twice more to create the law of three. So each radii becomes a diameter of its own circle with positive and negative poles. And we get the holy eight, the infinity, and we get the continuum, whereby any point can travel, instead of around the circumference of the circle and be separate from the center, it can travel in infinity, in the figure eight, and travel to the extreme positive infinity and the extreme negative infinity through the center, through the source. And now the continuum is valid, because the center is now connected to the circumference. And here we have two radii become two diameters, or four radii. And the origin here is united with everything, and the matrix valid, and infinity is defined. You also note that each circle must obey the law of duality. So we have positive, negative, and positive, negative within each circle, within within everything. And then this is where we get this idea of twisting everything. So the law of three unfolds: positive, negative, and union, the creative law of the universe and the first dimension. The mind will argue that +1 and -1 equals 0, but in fact 2 times 1 is 2, and since 0 is a valid point along the continuum, 1 + 2 equals 3. So there's 3 points here. You cannot deny that there's 3 points. There's the 0 point, the center, and then there's the point of maximum and the point of minimum. So the maximum positive and maximum negative, or positive infinity, maximum negative infinity. The mind also looks at this and wants to call this two-dimensional. But really, we're only using the circles here to define the continuum, and how the point moves, oscillates between the positive maximum and negative maximum, and back and forth, but it oscillates this way through the continuum of infinity. So if we were to draw what this looks like over time, if we were actually to draw it in 2 dimensions, we would see something like this. Up, down, 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 up, down. Right? That's you'll have to forgive our penmanship. We don't actually have a pen here. We're trying to do this with a mouse, and it's not easy to do. So the problem with 1 dimension is that there's no motion here. This diameter seems to go to one infinity and the other infinity, but there's no momentum. Duality alone cannot cannot be everything. So 2 opposed radii can define only the diameter of the circle, not its circumference, which is everything. But recall that to unfold the law of 3, we applied the law of 2 3 times, meaning there's a polarity within each polarity in accordance with the law of duality. This means that each radius has within it the nature of the opposing radius. So positive and negative circles each have their own positive and negative poles along the 1D axes. Since the nature of polarity is duality, is opposition, at the circumference, everything's limit, motion's end. So what we're saying here is that these 2 points, the law of duality is radiation. These 2 points want to radiate out to infinity, and there's no opposing force to cause them to want to come back together. So the answer is to introduce the opposing force known as the law of attraction or gravitation. And that force is defined by like attracts like. And this produces action within the continuum. In other words, in the positive circle, we have 3/4 positive and 1/4 negative. In the negative circle, we have 3/4 negative and 1/4 positive. But this positive, nature abhors a vacuum, this positive is drawn to return to its positive sphere, and this negative is drawn to return to the negative sphere. And that's what creates motion, because they can't actually pass through their opposite, right? Because the radiation is separating them, but gravitation is pushing them, or pulling them back together again. So what we see here is visualized. Attraction is not a push, but a pull. Each 3/4 potential pulls on the remaining 1/4. Since each potential is contained within an opposing polarity which cannot be crossed, movement occurs. And it's a 1/4 rotation, creating 2 new poles along the west-east axes. So this configuration creates north and south, positive and negative poles, but the potentiality, the pull, the force is negative here, pulling on that quarter. And the positive force here is pulling up and around on this quarter. And of course, we are all familiar with this visualization of the phenomenon. This is the revelation of the Tao, and how the Tao comes into being through the unfolding of the law of 1, the law of 2, and the law of 3. The Tao reveals a law of attraction or gravitation The 3 quarters, positive and negative, seek union with their corresponding quarter. The pull of attraction, or union, is greater than the push of repulsion, or dualities, or the radiation. But the illusion is that opposites attract. It's the hidden potential for union which sets the one dimension into rotation and creates 2 dimensions across a 2-dimensional plane. And of course, this is repeated on other axes and other planes to actually create the 3 dimensions and beyond. But we'll get to that in just one moment. But while it has been said that the Tao that can be explained is not the real Tao, and that's true, at the same time, what we are seeing here is the actual, by deconstructing the Tao and creating the Tao from nothing, and witnessing how the Tao emerges from nothing through the creation of the law of 1 and the law of 2 and the law of 3, radiation and gravitation, and in duality and the union of the 2, we see the rotation and the motion of these 2 opposing potentials and their relationship with one another, creating this ubiquitous, universal symbol, which is found at the heart of all phenomena, including magnetism and electricity and gender, the masculine, feminine force, and in mathematics, the positive and negative, etc. And we'll see how all of that unfolds. Because the opposed potentialities of the universe, radiation, which is law of duality, polarity, seeks the dialectic. Radiation seeks separation, and the dialectic, the opposing forces. But gravitation, the law of attraction, seeks unity. Gravitation seeks the resolution of the dialectic, or the revolution of the, and what we get is literally the revolution of the dialectic. The dialectic, the opposites revolving around each other, we get the great cosmic dance, the cosmic interplay of reality and of life. Here we see the north and south poles, and as the Tao rotates, we create the east-west poles. So in doing so, we see the law of 4 and 5 unfold. The law of 3 procreates the second axes and the cardinal points, the second dimension and the cross of the universe. So here we have 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points total. And this, of course, is also esoterically, we get the esoterically, oh, we can't draw it there, sorry. Esoterically, we get the 5-pointed star, right? Because these are the 5 points. And then this is the 5-pointed star, the upright, right? The pointing to the north. And then we get also the inverse of this, which is the sign of the Black Lodge, right? So we get the yin and yang, and these, so the 5-pointed star pointing down. That's when this continuum is in rotation. It revolves around. So sometimes it's facing up, sometimes it's facing down. And these 2 opposing 5 points represent the 2 opposing sides of esotericism, the White Lodge and the Black Lodge. But it's still the cross, and the cross is rotating. As the cross rotates through a quarter turn, it creates the law of 8, 9, and 10, the foundation and base 10 mathematics in the 4th dimension, which we can visualize like this. So we have another 2 axes. We're adding another 4 points to our original 5 points, but a second 0 point. So we get 4 dimensions and base 10 mathematics, because we have 10 9 points around, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. So that's 10 digits, 9 points and 10 digits. But the fourth dimensional mystery is, you know, where's the third? What happens to the third dimension? And what happened to the laws of 6 and 7? Did we just skip over them? In other words, you can't just keep doubling everything. So our solution is that the law of 3 unfolds 3 times into the laws of 6 and 7 and creates the organizational law of everything in the third dimension. So what we see here is a 3-dimensional cube, and the axes 1, 2, 3 axes. So the X, Y, Z axes. 3 times 1 dimension, and we create 7 points. And inside this cube, we get an esoteric sphere. And what that is a sphere which connects to the center, to the inside center of the 6 sides of this cube. So inside the box, there is a sphere that fits just inside that box and touches the exact midpoint of each side of the 3-dimensional cube. And this is like squaring the circle in 3 dimensions. This esoteric sphere is important because remember, we're talking about the X, Y, Z axes here. So the 3-dimensional universe and the in the 3D cube contains within it this esoteric sphere. And it looks like a flower. And that's important. When we expand this out and we take the law of 7 and apply it to the laws of 7 and 6, we get the laws of 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13. 3 laws of 6 on 3 axes and 9 esoteric spheres. So we've taken the same axes, we've expanded it out, but now we have taken the esoteric sphere and we've duplicated it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then in the middle, we have 9. We have 9 esoteric spheres on 3 axes. We're not going to walk you through all the mathematics and all the numbers around here. Just you have to try to look at this 2-dimensional drawing in kind of 3-dimensionally, because always remember that we were talking about the X, Y, Z axes here, the creation of a cube. And in the middle of that cube is always this esoteric sphere, which is contained inside of the 3-dimensional cube, which is all made up of these single dimensions, which we have represented by the circles since the beginning. If we apply the law of 7 again to the laws of 9, 12, and 13, we produce the flower of life. So we produce an esoteric sphere, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 spheres times 3. And if we take only those esoteric spheres, which are arranged in a cube, and we draw a circle around them, we get what is known as the flower of life. And this is the foundation of Eastern mysticism, of Hinduism. And also, it contained within the flower of life, we find Metatron's cube and foundational geometry, the 4D hypercube, and all of sacred geometry is contained within the flower of life. So the flower, here we have the flower of life, the foundation of Eastern mysticism, and we have sacred geometry, Metatron's cube, which is the foundation of Western philosophy and mathematics. And all of it is derived from the law of three in the Tao. The radiation and gravitational forces in the infinite dance. So let's look at how that expands out in a different way. On the great cross of the universe, we have positive infinity and negative infinity on the line of life, and we have the line of we have limitless light and unlimited dark on the line of being, and we have the emanation of the Tao along the positive and along the in positive and negative according to the law of duality, and expanding out where each manifestation or each expression or radiation of the Tao becomes encapsulated as an expression of another level or dimension of itself. And then this process repeats, and it repeats again until eventually the singular Tao, which expresses from the 0 point to the limits of infinity, positive infinity and negative infinity on the line of life. But all of these expressions of Tao, and we notice that according to the law of gravitation and radiation, gravitation, like attracts like, the law of attraction. So this Tao is in an oscillation. So you see here, there's light, light, dark, dark, light, light, dark, dark, light, light, dark, dark. That's because the dark, negative or feminine is attracted to each other, and the positive attracted to each other, and this creates this oscillation, which again, if we were to draw this out, is the oscillation of the sine curve or the cosine curve, or basically vibration, right? So it's the S curve along the line of being. So the line of being, and we have this radiation to the pole and back again. And that's depicted here, but we also have the expansion here. And so this is the we see in these expanding circles. These are fractals of the same Tao to the whole universe. This is the Tao that expresses from the absolute. This is the whole everything, which expanded out from the 0 point. And as you can see, it has to expand out and radiate in 2 different directions. And in doing so, it radiates out in 2 different directions. It radiates out and creates the positive and the negative. So along the line of life, it creates the absolute light, mercy or affirmation, and it creates the absolute dark or severity and negation. The North Pole and the South Pole. But in the middle is absolute source of love or reconciliation, from which these 2 emanations expand and radiate out from, and back into which they must eventually gravitate toward. Because in the eternal dance, this whole Tao rotates. And the reason why that is because of the nature of the great breath. is that eventually, as you can see, the expansion of the Tao into these various different levels, right, reaches the limit. And we have a limit of expansion, and then we go into back into contraction as it relates to the perturbations in the absolute. So here, though, you also see that we have within the light, we have this darkness, the source of gnosis or experience, the self-evident experiential knowledge in synthesis within the solution, and that is the affirmation, I am this, I am that, right? And likewise, below we have the self-evident experiential knowledge in coagula, negation, I am not. So we have what I am and what I am not. But then in between, in the absolute, we have the recognition of self-evident experiential knowledge in solution or reconciliation. So here we have affirmation, here we have negation, and between we have reconciliation. I am that I am what I am. Because all emanates from the source, all emanates from the absolute. And that's absolute balance and the great interplay, the great dance between white and dark, light and dark, masculine and feminine, positive and negative. And if we orient these vertically this way, what we get is the pillars of light, or the pillars of mercy on the right, and we have the pillar of dark or severity or negation on the left. Holy affirmation, holy negation, holy reconciliation, to use the vernacular of G.I. Gurdjieff. But this is also the pillars of the tree of life. So we have Jacqueline and Boaz, and we have the center pillar of the spinal column, the pillar of light, an absolute source of love. And even though the absolute limitless light is at the north end of the continuum, we must recognize that the absolute emanates both light and dark, and the interplay between light and dark radiates in both directions. It has to. It can only radiate through both directions, and that's why the fourth dimension is known as the foundation. It's the foundation of the two pillars of the tree of life, and we have demonstrated that it can't happen any other way. You can't have two absolutes. There's only one absolute which radiates out into the absolute limits, and there is no limit. There's unlimited light, and there's a limitless light, and the potential for unlimited dark. But in any expansion and contraction, in the breath of life, just breathe in and out. I mean, eventually, if you breathe in, you can expand your lungs only so far, and then eventually the tension, and you can hold your breath only so long, but then eventually you have to let it go. You have to let it out. What goes up must come down. And it's this relationship between the Tao and the revolution of the Tao and the perturbations in the absolute. And this as we follow along, this S curve up and down, it's the center line which returns back to the absolute, which is the absolute source of everything, which is absolute perfect balance. So this presentation, here we go. We start getting into the dimensions. So we have dimension one, the three-dimensional universe. So at these levels, so the first, second, and third dimension. And then the fourth dimension is the foundation. That's the first emanation. That's the first Tao that we created. And then the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, and the seventh dimension, and the lower fifth dimension. That's the second and third dimension. These numbers need to be reversed. We have to work on this. This is in progress, right? That's why our channel is called Attlas in Formation. We are sharing our process with you so that you can be a part of it. and you can grow and evolve along with us and witness the ongoing evolution of the formation of the message as it's being created, as we are working through it, because we are all one. We are all one consciousness, and we are all our existence is all an illusion, and we've just demonstrated that, because everything are just perturbations in the absolute. This center source point just expands out into this whole universe, right, through the continuum that we just showed. It's this big Tao here that contains everything, but it's really in the 0 point. And this whole continuum created and evolves out of the 0 point of the 4th dimension. The first vibrations of sound, right? That's what creates these waves. The radiation and gravitation that creates the sound wave that produces everything, because even light is a wave. We get the electromagnetic spectrum of what we can see and what we don't see. So we have down here 1, 2, 3, and then this dimension is in Kabbalah known as Klipoth, or the lower 5th dimension. And this has the numerical value of 2 plus 3, because this is the second, you add together the 2nd and 3rd dimension. And then we have the negative 8th dimension, which is the value of 6, and the positive 8th dimension, which has a value of 9. So positive infinity, negative infinity, but here we have 8 minus 2 points. This point and this point. 8 minus 2 is 6. This then is the holy 6. And 8 plus 1 is 9, and this is the holy 9. This is the 6 and 9. And the 3 is the Tao in the 0 point is also the 3, the Holy Trinity, the positive, negative, neutral. So we have 3, 6, and 9. And to understand and appreciate the universe and to unravel its secrets, we work with the 3, 6, and 9. And if we reorient all of those perturbations in the absolute along the line of being in this orientation, we start to see how we create the 2 pillars of Jacquin and Boaz and the center pillar of light, and how the movement unfolds down, the light unfolds down between them and creates this this dual helix. We also see that dark, 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 light, 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 again, according to the law of attraction, we see how it generates these trinities, these triangles, down into the 4th dimension, which is the foundation, and then into the 3rd dimension and the lower 5th dimension. And this presentation, this PowerPoint is in progress, so we will see more of an evolution of this and the unfoldment of the tree of life as we progress in creating it. But really, what we're looking at here is a chess game. Emanating, or what actually taking place as perturbations in the absolute, are the forces of radiation and gravitation, expressing as opposition and reconciliation. Opposition, and reconciliation. The absolute separates itself into those 2 opposing forces of radiation and gravitation, and creates that forward momentum in the Tao in order to play this game. And it's a game, and it's a balance game. And you may hear that it expressed that the Black Lodge actually secretly works for the White Lodge. That our opponents, when you play chess, your opponent is not your enemy. Your opponent is just your opponent. Your opponent is there to test you, is there to challenge you, because you're playing a game. And your opponent is there, you set up the board, and your opponent is there to try to win, just as you're trying to win. And your opponent has to be as good or at least as good as you are in order to make the game a challenge, to make it interesting, and to create the myriad possibilities of positions on the board. But eventually you get to a point where the board becomes so cluttered and the positions are so complex and the game becomes so confused that you have to start moving into the end game. And you have to start taking pieces, clearing out the board, and or you offer your hand to your opponent, shake hands, and you say, good game, let's call it a draw. Or one side resigns, and we call it a game. We say, okay, that was a good game. Now let's reset the board. No matter how it plays out, no matter how the middle game, and no matter how the end game plays out, we're going to get to a point where we sweep the board clean and we set the pieces up again. But if the game is playing out in the end game, then there is some pieces will be sacrificed to clear out the board, and before the game comes to an end, and there is a reset, a great reset of the pieces to continue the game in the next match, the next round. And it's that great reset that is the impetus for what we're calling the Attlas project. And we use the terminology archaion. If you're familiar with esotericism, Gnosticism, you've heard the term archon before, and the aeons and the archons. What we're showing here is that when it comes to the Great Reset, the archons and the ions actually have to work together and come together, because they're actually two sides of the same coin in the absolute, and they're both aspects. And when we reach the absolute limits of complexity, and the game has become so convoluted and it's been played, the game has been played out, it's time for the Great Reset. And the Great Reset is about taking the best of the best and preserving them for the next round, and also resetting the board and resetting the pieces to prepare for the next game. So the archaeon, or the arc we have here, showing the arch, actionable reset of Christic humanity. So the actionable reset, reconciliation, and renewal of Christic humanity. Arc meaning ark, the portal to truth, the vessel of love, the bridge over troubled waters, the strong box of salvation, and the arch is also the strongest form made by man or nature. That's what the arch and the ark represents, like the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of Noah. That's on the side of severity, right? That's the physical, that's the preservation side. That's the feminine nurturing side. That's the arch. On the other side, we have the aeons, the ion. Act inward and onward now. Aion. It's a call to action. It's to be here and now. It's to act in on the Tao. It's the mercy. It's the light which descends from the absolute source down into the physical world and down into hell itself to pay karma and pay the planet's karma, and allow for the forgiveness of karma and the negotiation of karma. So the maximum number of souls can be saved and be included in the strongbox of salvation, and be included in the ark, which will continue over the troubled waters and into the new humanity, into the next reset, or the next round of humanity. But the other thing that goes inside the ark is the knowledge, and the ark of the covenant contains the covenant, and in the covenant is the law, the rules, right? The rules for the game, for the next round. And these are the 7 churches of Asya. They're directly related to the 7 chakras of the individual. The 7 churches of Asya, as the revelation applies to the individual. But on a planetary level, on a humanitarian level, on a human level, these 7 aspects of humanity need to be reset, and they need to be reset in the right way for the golden age. And we will begin, and we'll quickly go through all 7, and we begin with we begin with this at the center, right? At the source. And at the source we have seek and see via self-evident experiential knowledge, and see visual aid. So we have gnosis, we have the knowledge, self-evident experiential knowledge, and the visual aids with which to share it. And visual aids also stands for something, and that's expressed here around the perimeter. See visual aid is strategize, engage, and execute with virtual interactive simulation, universal adaptive language, and an actionable intelligence discourse. Because knowledge that's not practical, knowledge that cannot be acted upon, is what use is it? We have to put that knowledge into activity. We have to be able to share that knowledge. We have to be able to preserve that knowledge. We have to be able to communicate that knowledge, and to be able to visualize and combine that visualization with the power of sound, the power of mantra, because sound, the vibration, is at the root source of everything. And we think of the vowel sounds associated with the various chakras. We think about E associated with the crown chakra, O associated with the heart chakra, M associated with the sexual organs, and S associated with the roots chakra. So Eaum, and then E is the throat chakra. These are the primary sounds of the 7 chakras, and these sounds can be harnessed into a strategic communication, into see visual aids, so that the sounds are present in the visualizations. As we put sounds and words together and visualizations together, we create a very powerful, dynamic, universal, and adaptive language, which cuts out or greatly reduces the potential for miscommunication, misinterpretation, and misunderstanding. That has to be at the heart of everything. The gnosis, the knowledge, the teachings, and their simple, straightforward communication, which is why we've given this presentation now, 3 hours last night, 3 hours today at noon, and now hopefully we're going to try to wrap it up in an hour and a half by 9:30. So we're going to cut it in half. We're going to keep trying to refine this presentation so that We can get it shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and more compact and more precise and concentrated and concise. And using the visualizations and the animations and everything at our disposal to be able to communicate this, because this is the essence, this is the core, to be able to share the knowledge and allow the knowledge to penetrate the consciousness of humanity and each and every one of us. So the next sphere, the next is then seems, which is sound empowered ethical metaphysical science. We need to move humanity out of the trap that it's in of materialist science and the belief that physical reality exists, and that physical reality is primary, and that matter is primary to the universe. It is not. It is an illusion. The universe is electric, and this whole physical reality exists in the great mind of God, of which we have an essence, a spark within us. And so we experience this reality, this physical reality, as a virtual reality that's playing out in the mind space. And the foundation of reality is the fourth dimension, which is electric, which is sound, and to have a science which understands that and abandons the atomic theory and abandons its current theories about electricity and the flow of electrons and all that nonsense, and embraces the science of Walter Russell, of 4D vortex science, and the recognition that the power of gravitation, of pull, which is electric, which has nothing to do with matter. There is no bending of space-time and the space-time continuum and all that nonsense. The time doesn't exist. Time is also an illusion. So there is no bending of space-time and all that nonsense. It is simply, we have demonstrated in this presentation that gravitation is an essential, fundamental potentiality in the universe that is created as soon as radiation, which is the law of expression, as soon as you create radiation, gravitation is automatically created as a counterbalancing force, as a counterbalancing potentiality. You do not need matter to create radiation. Radiation is not radiation. Radiation is magnetism. And it's just the way in which this unfolds in reality. We have to comprehend that. And when science comprehends that, and it is empowered with the power of sound and applies it with a renewed ethics based around love, based around do no harm to others, do not impose your will upon others, allow and accept and let go and allow for the natural flow of individuals to, we will have a sound empowered ethical metaphysical science. Seems, and that science will be able to accomplish things that the ancients were able to accomplish, that the Atlanteans were able to accomplish, that the Egyptians were able to accomplish, that modern engineering cannot accomplish, like the construction of the Great Pyramid. The fellow who built Coral Castle, for example, in Florida, and he moved these gigantic multi-ton megaliths by himself. He did that with sound and these conical shaped resonators, which created these vortexes of sound. And with that, he's able to overcome gravity, overcome the magnetic pull of the earth, and the attraction of apparent attraction, what seems to be the attraction of physical objects down to the earth. He's able to overcome that because everything is sound, everything is vibration, and with sound you can overcome that. You can use the radio and the radiative and gravitational force of the fourth dimensional vortex science of Walter Russell to pull objects away, negate, basically anti-gravity, pull them away from the force of the gravitational force pulling them down by creating a negative vortex above those objects, which have a gravitational pull greater than the gravitational pull of the Earth. And that's how you can counterbalance and defeat gravity. And with anti-gravity, all those billionaires that are in this rush and race, they're in this new commercial space race, and they're building rockets, and they're using explosions to blow themselves into space. They will be able to overcome gravity using fourth dimensional vortex science. And they will not need to have explosions. And we can have flying vehicles and spacecraft that create forward momentum and levitation just by creating negative vortices of force, of potential, in front or above or to the side, and creating such vortexes of magnetic and electric potentiality is what allows the UFOs that we witness in those videos to be able to move at incredible speeds through any dimension, XYZ plane, and they don't have to arc, they don't have to fly like a typical airplane, like our aircraft does, because they're working with 4D science. They are able to dematerialize their apparent physicality into Jinn state, and they can take their because matter is an illusion, it's just a vibration, it's just a virtualization. If you can vibrate at the correct frequencies in the right way, in the right balance, then you can go from the physical to the etheric, and you can overcome any and all laws that apply to the physical plane. And you can travel in straight lines, and you can travel at incredible speeds. All you have to do is witness a brook trout. A brook trout can swim against the current and hold itself, and a brook trout will hold itself in a position as the water flows past. And how it's doing that is it opens its mouth, and just as the water that goes down the toilet swirls and increases in velocity as it swirls down the toilet bowl, or swirls down the drain, the brook trout creates a drain out of its mouth, out of its body, and the water flows out of its gills and down the sides of its body. So it's creating this drain, and it accelerates the water in front of it and creates this vortex. That vortex creates a negative pressure that holds it against the flow of the water. Now, if you understand the torus and the toroidal field of the magnetic field of the Earth, you understand that that's what gravity is. It's the toroidal field. It's that pull. It's that pull of the Tao, or the yin and yang, or the toroidal field, pulling things back down that drain of the whole planet. But if you can create a counterbalancing vortex that turns in the opposite direction and creates a negative vortex against that pull, you can pull forward through that magnetic field. So you can counterbalance the force of gravity against you, and basically you can levitate objects. And you can do this with sound. There are many experiments, and you can actually go onto YouTube and watch videos where people are levitating things with sound. And this is the future, just as it was in the past. How these megaliths were levitated and put into place using sound by the ancients. They didn't have machinery and all that nonsense doing that. They didn't need it. They had a sound empowered metaphysical science to work with, and we have to return to that. So that's this sphere. The scientific sphere needs to be renewed. It needs to be healed. It needs to be extracted out of the prison of materialism and physicality. In order to help assist that process, the Attlas Project has already incorporated the not-for-profit organization known as Genesis Eco Fund, and also we have Attlas Information, which, as we're doing right now, to share information about this and try to get this essential information into the hands of people who are ethical and who have the capacity to recognize the importance of letting go of the materialist paradigm and the physical paradigm, which is a prison for the consciousness and a prison for the mind and the prison for humanity that's keeping us trapped in the physical three-dimensionality, and worse, keeping us trapped in hell, keeping us trapped in unnecessary complexity. And we are bumping up against the ceiling of the limits of the physical universe, because as Einstein's own equations prove, that nothing in the physical universe can travel faster than the speed of light. So cosmic travel, interplanetary travel, the ability to go visit other humanities and everything is we're never going to achieve it so long as we're trapped. Our consciousness is trapped on the physical plane and physical reality, because in order to achieve to go faster than the speed of light, you create infinite mass, and everything breaks down. So you have to be able to overcome that, and you overcome that by working with 4D metaphysical science, 4D vortex science, and you break free of the limitations of the physical virtual universe. Next, at the very pinnacle, at the very top, we have the mantra I-A-O-M. Now, contained in this mantra, we have the I-A-O, which is the crown chakra, the heart chakra, and the thalamus gland, which is behind the heart, which is the union of heart-mind, which is so important in Eastern philosophy and Buddhism and Zen particularly. This is so important because the union of heart-mind and the ability to use both heart-mind in harmonious union and in a practical and meaningful way, and put those at the disposal of our being to become true human beings. See, the I-A-O-M mantra here also contains the sexual organs, which relates to the raising of the Kundalini. And we could add an S to this, to the root, so we harness the root chakra. So I-A-O-M. And it contains the Alma life, which is at the heart of all phenomena, which is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, which is the whole purpose and existence of suffering. But here, I-A-O-M stands for individual analogs observing ultimate methodology. So the analogous ultimate methodology, A-O-M, at the heart of all phenomena, but also at the heart of all beings. So we need to become individual analogs observing the ultimate methodology within ourselves and working with the ultimate methodology within ourselves. That ultimate methodology in us is psychological. So this sphere is a universal, sound-empowered, visualization-empowered, meditation-empowered, practical application of self-psychological exercise and healing. Psychology and the study of psychology and the working of psychology and the practice of psychology is as fundamental to our existence as human beings as our immune system is fundamental to the preservation and maintenance of our physical body. Our mind and our heart, our psychology, requires a psychological immune system. But whereas our physical immune system and the physical body operates mechanically in accordance with the mechanical nature of the physical body, our psychological immune system requires conscious application. It doesn't work mechanically. It has to work consciously. It has to be active. We have to actively operate it because it's part of our psyche. It's part of our mind. It's part of our emotions. If we don't work with it actively, positively, consciously, then what happens is our psychology falls, and our consciousness falls asleep, and our psychology and our psychological immune system, the alum of life, works in the reverse mechanically, and we fall into the downward spiral of psychology, of falling into confusion and subconsciousness. We fall more and more asleep. But if we work with the alum of life consciously, we get into the upward spiral of upward expansion of our mind and consciousness. And the science of that aum is we show in our video on the Atlas project video. We've done extensive work, and to help humanity in this circle, this pinnacle circle, because everything is psychology for this humanity. We can't get anywhere if we can't be true human beings, awake and aware, conscious. So the Atlas project has U method, which is the ultimate methodology. It's a application, a mobile phone app and a web app, which helps individuals practice self-observation and to work with the alum of life. Self-observation is the beginning, is the first step. And so practicing mindfulness, but also meditation and comprehension and recognition of the nature of the egos, the nature of the obstructions and the causes of our suffering, and the true purpose of those egos, the true purpose of our psychological aggregates, and what caused them, what created them, and how they create suffering for ourselves and others, right? This has to be fundamental to humanity's daily life, right? Just think of all the things that we have to worry about and do on a day-to-day basis. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to get exercise. We have to work on our psychology. We have to do the maintenance on our mind and on our heart. We have to clear out the garbage. We have to, as we go through life and experiences, the impressions that we take into ourselves, we have to treat that as food. So you wouldn't eat food that was dirty and muddy and still covered with pesticides, right? You prepare your food. You wash it, you clean it. If it's various different vegetables, you peel them. You wouldn't bite into a pineapple or bite into a banana. You peel it first. You transform that food into a state where you can digest it, and you can digest it properly and positively. Every impression you take into the body, you should be doing the same thing consciously, actively, the transformation of impressions, so that your psychology, your mind, and your emotions can digest it in a positive way. And that's an active conscious process that does not happen mechanically. If you don't do that actively and consciously, then your subconscious mind will take those impressions and process them mechanically. And they will digest and produce from those impressions more psychological aggregates. They will stimulate your lust and your greed and your pride and your fear. And then it's no wonder that this humanity is so asleep and suffering so much, because this humanity knows nothing about the transformation of impressions. It knows nothing about the alum of life. It knows nothing about these facets. And even though Carl Jung came along and said, we must make the subconscious conscious, else it will govern our lives. It will rule, our subconscious will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. Carl Jung was a great Gnostic, and he was very, very conscious and comprehended the archetypes and how all of this plays out in our psyche. But 99% of humanity knows nothing about any of this. And yet here it is at the pinnacle, at the very top. This is the absolute concern of the absolute limitless light, to be able to provide. And that's why we have masters like Master Jesus and Master Samael and Bayor, who devoted and dedicated their lives to the transmission of the teachings and revolutionary psychology, in order to make this available to humanity. And we have taken the best of all of that and packaged it in not just a technological app, but also into a consulting service called Know You, Seek Yourself, which the purpose of Know You is all about connecting to your innermost being, connecting to your purpose for living, your purpose for being. We are all just characters in this virtual MMORPG called life. This is video game, this virtual reality. But we are identified to the character instead of living in remembrance and cognizant knowledge of our innermost player. So imagine if you were playing a video game, imagine if you were playing Super Mario Brothers, and all of a sudden Mario became self-aware and started believing that he was real, and started believing that he wanted to do X, Y, Z and ABC and go all over the place. And there you were, the player, and all of a sudden you were disconnected from Mario. And Mario was doing everything, on his own, and he was falling into all kinds of problems and all kinds of despair and all kinds of suffering. And there you are, the player, and you're desperately trying to communicate with your character who's lost and trapped in the video game, but there's no response. There's a disconnect. So Know You is all about helping the character, helping humanity reconnect with their innermost being, who is directly connected with Source via the intimate Christ, and connected with everyone else, because all those characters who are part of this virtual reality doesn't exist, and neither do the characters exist. But so long as the individuals remain identified with their character and with the virtual reality, they will remain ignorant to their innermost being, their true self. So these are the two aspects, and we have these entities created for this pinnacle, highest point out of the seven. Next, moving clockwise, we have the mantra Hameshia. Now, it stands for Holistic, Active, Managed, Ecosystem, Integrated, Advanced Human Habitat. Now, that is a mouthful, but luckily, we have now, forgive us while we just trying to navigate all of these open windows and stuff. There we go. We have a visualization for you. What you are looking at is a peapod life, high order rainforest ecosystem, ecodome, surrounded by 12 peapod living units. And well, I guess we'll go backwards through the, okay, so here you can see it from a more top-down view. And inside of this ecodome, we have a pyramidal high-order rainforest ecosystem. So this is an active high-order rainforest ecosystem with no soil. It's all using living water, and it's creating this toroidal field of mutual harmony and symbiosis. And it's cleaning the air, and it's cleaning the water, and it's creating this energy of space of love. This is from the bottom looking up in this ecodome. And then surrounding that, and then inside, just like the pyramids of old, the pyramids of Atlantis, inside this pyramid is a meditation chamber where you can go in and you can practice Reiki and you can practice meditation inside the very heart and the core of that toroidal electromagnetic field, of that space of love, at the 0 point of this pyramidal high order ecosystem, is exactly where the pillow is of the meditation chamber. So when you lie down to sleep, your head, your pineal gland, will be oriented almost at the exact source point of the toroidal field of this high order rainforest ecosystem's electromagnetic field of the superorganism. And that is where you orient your pineal gland when you meditate in that meditation chamber. But in addition to that, you will live in one of the units. And the nature of a pea pod is that there are 12 of them around the center ecodome, but these are individual shipping containers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they can be single units for a single person. They can be a double unit for a couple. They can be a 2-story unit or a 3-story unit for families. And because they're shipping containers, they're very, very tough. They're very strong. Shipping containers do not buckle in earthquakes. Shipping containers do not collapse because of hurricanes or tornadoes. Shipping containers, do not crumble. And as for all the glass, this is not glass, this is plexiglass. This is the same kind of glass they use in hockey rinks to protect the crowd from hockey pucks. And plexiglass lets in more ultraviolet light, which is not dangerous. Ultraviolet light, the blue light, is what gives plants and gives us the highest energy, solar light, solar energy. So in combination, you have a very resilient, very strong structure here. This is a spiral ramp that goes in the ecodome that allows people to walk from the bottom to the top, to the rooftop, where and that spiral, of course, is like the spiral of the Tao and the spiral of Aum and the spiral of DNA. And well, I mean, this whole thing is designed for resilience and for uplifting and energy and maximizing healing as a space of love and also community. And it doesn't take much imagination to realize that this entire structure can be built on hempcrete, which is basically foam concrete, which floats, and then built underneath it on a floating platform, and that multiple pea pod ecodome arrangements like this can be linked together. Also, because it's all based on shipping containers, everything can be dismantled, put onto trucks, put onto trains, put onto ships, moved to other parts of the world. So if one community is stuck and all of a sudden the climate changes, earthquakes happen, something about the environment, the outside environment becomes so inhospitable that they have to up and move, they can do so because everything is oriented around shipping containers. So it's actually mobile. One of the shows that we grew up watching was MASH, Mobile Armored Surgical Hospital, MASH. And this notion that I guess was somehow hammered into our consciousness, but also was revealed through the wisdom of the Aboriginal people, the Native North Americans, who, I guess it was in the film Dances with Wolves, where when he runs to the village in the middle of the night to tell them that the buffalo, that there's a herd of buffalo that is nearby, that he's seen buffalo, and then he comments how the entire village was able to pack up and move with an efficiency that even the military would have to be impressed by. And there is always something about that, the practicality of resilience, of adaptability, to be able to create entire communities on this paradigm where you have living high order ecosystems, but also these shipping containers that it can be moved to new areas as required. This is going to be very practical and very meaningful as we go through what's about to unfold for this planet, for this humanity. So let's return briefly to here. So clearly then we have Peapod Life, which is an entity that we've formed in partners and partnerships to make the Hameshia a reality. And now in Hameshia, we have the mantra Meshia, Messiah, which in the Jewish tradition is the Savior. But we also have Hamsa, which is the Hamsa pranayama meditation, the Hamsa mantra for the circulation of the prana within the body. And all of that is contained within the actual physical construct of Peapod Life and the preservation in that physical arc. The next sphere we come to is seed, planting the seed of society-engaged electric democracy. We prefer the word electric as opposed to electronic, simply because of the fact that the universe is electric, not electronic. We will begin, because with baby steps, we will begin with society-engaged electronic democracy, but eventually we will graduate to electric democracy, which will be telepathic, working through the fourth dimension and the vibrations of thought vibrations themselves in the fourth and fifth dimension. We will be able to telepathically communicate, and we will be able to ditch all of these devices. But in the meantime, between now and getting there, we have to have society-engaged electric democracy. So a vision where our elected representatives do not govern us. They are not elected to rule. They are elected to serve. And this is a shift, an ethical shift. And to achieve this, we must eradicate the concept of political parties. And we must eradicate the concept of tribalism and political tribalism and left and right and all of this dogmatic beliefs, and instead return to this concept and this logo, which we have established. And this is all on the Attlas Project website, and we actually have a video for Centrist Democratic Progress Canada. We're located in Canada, and Canada's Turtle Island. So this is as good a place as any to establish democracy. And in this logo, you see the powerful Holy Eight. You see how there's this conservative arm, this conservative loop, this liberal loop, red and blue. In Canada, red is liberal and blue is conservative. But then the Great Reset is purple. It's the union of blue and red. And the maple leaf happens to be a 12-pointed star. If you count the points around here, they add up to 12. So the 12 points of light, the 12 points around the center point of the cross. This is an allegory for the 12 apostles who revolve around the Christ. The Christ is the cross, but you also know the symbol of Pax Christus, the P and the X, right? The Father and the Son, and the cross. So the Pax Christus is the sign of the Christ. That's incorporated in this logos. And the 12 points, the 12 pointed star that travels around the center point of which is the star, which is the cross of light. This refers to the 12 constellations, which revolve around the North Star, which is the pole star, Polaris at the North Pole, which is the absolute source of light. All of this is incorporated. And here we have the D and the P, which is the 6 and the 9, and C, D, P, C. So in the 6 and 9, but always returning to the cross of light, which is the C from the root chakra to the crown chakra, SI. And that's why that dollar sign is the dollar sign, because it's the sign of the continuum from the root chakra to the crown chakra along the line of being, right? From the root chakra to the crown chakra, from the darkness to the light, and raising up the energy which goes up and down, and it goes up and down in the continuum of the Holy Eight. And we're showing this line, this center line, as the Great Reset. So we go around and we get to here and we go up to the Great Reset, back to the light. And then we go around again, down to the bottom, and then we go up and then down and up and down and up. We're here. We're here, down here at the bottom. And it's time for us to unite and come together here in the world, because we're stuck down here in hell psychologically. But we want to get back up here. So the two sides, conservative and liberal, have to come together. We have to return to a centrist democratic progress and return humanity back to the light. And then so we can start the game again and go through this process. Next, down here, this is the foundation, right? It's at the bottom. It's at the very foundation, because we have to be practical. We have to live in the real world. And the foundation is economics, right? The physical manifestation of energy and the interplay between, because money is not evil. Money is not evil. Money is just manifestation and expression and representation of energy. It's how money is used and utilized in the world that makes it good or evil. So here we're talking about CV, society, social, environmental, economic values. So there's a fundamental flaw in capitalism, and that it's finally been recognized. We wrote about it in our book, The Attlas Project, See the World, Volume 1, See the World in New Light. We wrote this book, it's been that chapter of the Attlas Project on Seconomics was our master's thesis, which we wrote in 2001, precisely 20 years ago. And we wrote the rest of the book. This book covered, in a sort of rudimentary secular way, the bottom three spheres. Pardon me. These bottom three and this fourth sphere, the bottom half of the center sphere, which was C visual aid. So volume 1 of the Attlas Project basically covered the bottom half of the sphere, the worldly sphere, and it was dealt with completely secularly, in a completely secular way. And when people ask me, why haven't you written volume 2 yet? We said that volume 2 is going to be written in the book of life. And that it has to do with, if volume 1 was see the world in a new light, volume 2 was see the light of the world. And that means volume 1 was completely secular. Volume 2 had to break that barrier into the metaphysical, into the spiritual. And that's where we have the metaphysical science, psychology, and ecosystem, Hameshia, here along the top. These are on the positive aspect, the upper three of this continuum. These lower three are kind of like the foundational worldly type. These are the things that we can do here in the world, and these are the things that are related directly to our psychology and the superior world. And you notice that science is above this line, is above the line of life. Science relates to science has to shift from this physical world and from being below the line and from being an egoist pursuit into above the line and being a metaphysical spiritual pursuit. And people refer to spiritual science and spirit science, et cetera, et cetera. But that's really what SEAMS has to be. Now, economics, though, is going to be in the world, right? Economics is going to be stuck in the world. And that's like really down here at the bottom. There's no way around this. Commerce and exchange we're talking about exchange, right? Exchanging value, exchanging energy, exchanging goods and services, and being able to track that and monitor that and account for that properly. And that includes accounting for what the intangible costs of business, what they refer to, people who talk about triple bottom line accounting refer to as externalized costs. Well, we wrote about that 20 years ago in our master's thesis, and we have an entire program called Seconomics in order to take the intangible costs of business and the externalized cost and put them back onto the balance sheet. And not just on the balance sheet, but on the very label of the product, like a nutritional label, where you'll be able to see the externalized costs, the social, environmental, and economic costs of that good or service. You'll be able to see it in the palm of your hand. And you will be able to do so because it'll be on there as a QR code, which you can scan on your device and then get instant access to the blockchain, which contains the ledger in real time, which is tracking the externalized costs of that good or service. Completely transparent and using blockchain technology, completely free of tampering and corruption. The blockchain technology, which was developed for cryptocurrencies, we apply that technology to the Seconomic philosophy and the fact that everywhere along the supply chain, anybody and everything that came into contact with that good or service, you get a weighted average cost of social environmental impact related to that product or service or in company. So now we will eliminate a stock market which only talks about the stock price. But along with the stock price, when the stock ticker goes by, it'll have the value of the stock, and right next to it, it'll have the C value, the social, environmental, economic value of that stock, along with the value of the stock. So as an investor, you can vote with your dollar. If you have a company that has a very high C value, which is bad, or a very high C value, which is good. A very low C value means it has a very high C cost. So C costing and C valuation is all about seeing the impacts on the environment and society and economics, and then being able to have that information in your hands the moment in which you make financial decisions, commercial decisions, economic decisions, to basically fix capitalism, fix the hole in the leaky ship, as it were. Next and finally, out of the 7, we have Vaisha, which we shall see. We shall see. Because V can be pronounced we. We shall see. We shall see. Visionary, interactive, enlightened society, high art, and culture. This is art. We've talked about science, psychology, ecosystems, advanced human habitat. We've talked about C democracy, we talked about C economics, and now we have to talk about we shall see art, high art and culture. Society, high art and culture, empowered with inspired universal truth, empowered with self-evident experiential knowledge, empowered with sound-empowered ethical metaphysical science, and the psychological work, the knowledge of how to operate the inner psychological immune system, and bringing all of this together and expressing it with music and painting and dance and theater and film and every other art and craft under the sun. But universal truths. On the poem, John Keats' poem, Ode on a Grecian Urn, the final couplet is, beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all you can know in life and all you need to know. We shall see is based on that couplet. Is the foundation of art should be that beauty and truth are should be one. We're not talking about aesthetics now. We're talking about the beauty that brings a tear to your eye, that makes tears stream down your face, the pure joy, the exuberance, the exhilaration, or the passion and the heartache that is beautiful in the experience of it, or the vicarious experience of it in the theater, which is, or through art, which Plato described as the cathartic experience. To be able to create for an audience a virtual experience whereby they can live vicariously through the protagonist, through the hero, as they fall in tragedy. And then in the final moments of the play, before their final demise, they have this moment of redemption, this eureka moment, this comprehension. They complete one cycle of the hero's journey, and they eliminate the dragon, they eliminate the demon, which dragged them down into the darkness and was causing the kingdom to fall into darkness. And they have this moment of liberation, of comprehension, of the eureka, and they're able to return, and the kingdom is restored. And either they are forgiven, or just before they may die, but before they die, they achieve redemption, they achieve reconciliation, and the kingdom, the whole kingdom, is renewed. That's why tragedy was always considered the highest form of art, and opera the highest form of high art, because operas were often tragic, but they were enveloped in music, and music is a super high, powerful art form, a science, because again, we come back to sound-empowered metaphysical science. In the octave, in sound and in music, and we turn to the masters like Mozart and Beethoven and Wagner, and we can really listen to that music, and that music can transform us, can transform our lives, transform our experiences. So we must return to a place where we work with the harmony of the octaves, and truth and beauty. And artists are not just making art for art's sake. Art for art's sake, another way of saying art for art's sake is ego masturbation. Indulging one's pain and suffering. And some people say, but it's cathartic and they're getting out of their system. And it's only cathartic if it's transformational. It's only cathartic if it's transformational, and it becomes a transformative piece where others can find transformation through interaction and engagement interactively with your work of art. High art has the power to transform people's consciousness, transform people's lives. High art is the art of service, where the artist the poet, the writer, you name it, the sculptor recognizes that their skill, their craft, their art must serve a higher purpose, a purpose higher than their own ego. And it is that light and their being and serving others through their work. If you have a beautiful voice, if you have an incredible talent, and you can connect through Iaum, you can connect to your innermost being and know yourself and connect to the source of light and bring that light into the world through your work, through your art, whatever that work may be, whatever that art or craft may be, then you have the potential to be a true master artist and achieve mastery through your art, because you find a life of service and you co-create with the innermost intimate Christ through you and bringing into the world beauty and truth and sharing that with others. We need to return to this. We need to return to this tradition, and get away from this art for art's sake garbage, which is selfishness, which is egotistical, which is all about money. And the other thing we have to get away from is this content garbage, streaming services, and all of that are pumping out just reams and reams and reams of junk food for the psyche, junk food for the consciousness. So here we see the 7 chakras of humanity, if you will, the 7 aspects of humanity: science, psychology, habitat, democracy, economics, and art. And in the center of it all, self-evident experiential knowledge, objective truth, and a way to communicate that truth objectively and simply and clearly. Oh, by the way, over here we have this concept of Attlas arts. This is a way for us to be able to encourage that art over here. This was actually the first Attlas project that we conceived back in high school. This is what drew us into the whole Attlas project itself, caused us to take theater and drama and literature at university. But as you can see, when it comes to that C visual aid, right, and objectively and sound-empowered metaphysical science and everything that we've talked about, born out of the Tao, born out of the 0 point, the center point of the rose on the cross with the Christic light. And here we have, as above, so below. Here we have the corporeal stuff. Here we have the as above stuff. And we have a single page visualization that outlines the whole of the Attlas project. One page, one meme, one that can be circulated, that can be shared, that can evolve, that can be refined, and that can be visualized. And these mantras can be spoken out loud and empower through visualization and through our imagination and energy and the creative power of sound. The more that we can talk about this and focus and concentrate on, we can bring this into reality. We can manifest this, because this is right and well and good to manifest during the end times, because we need the arc, the archeon, the union of severity and mercy. We need both the White Lodge and the Black Lodge working together to come together to do the Great Reset, as we visualize in the Centrist Democratic Progress logo, to reset in the absolute center of the cross of light and reset the world, reset the game board, reset the chessboard. And that's where we're at. And as we progress forward into the future, we will continue working on this, not only in this PowerPoint presentation, but solidifying the words and the message, and writing the words down and putting it into a book form. So putting out the Attlas Project, Volume 2, and including Volume 1. So having it in 2 parts in a single book. So having all of these 7 components outlined, and clearly delineated, and so we will be looking for an agent or a publisher to work with us to help put this all out and offer this as, again, as the blueprint to get us from where we are to where we need to be. So it's a little bit longer. We went an hour and 46 minutes. So it's a little bit longer than we had expected, but it's certainly not as long as the 3 hours that we did at noon today. Any questions? Say that again. What stimulates the psychic aggregates? So there's a couple questions. We're going to see if we can scroll through a few of these. Hi, Atlas. John, cycles within cycles, AC electricity. Yes. Okay, say that again. What stimulates the psychic aggregates? I don't know if Ryu is still with us, but low vibration. So like vibration, like attracts like, and like stimulates like. So fear stimulates fear, but also impressions, right? So your fear can be stimulated. So for example, if you have a phobia of spiders, a spider will stimulate the psychic aggregate of fear in you, and your fear will start to resonate with fear. But what's important to remember as we do the work, and we use this analogy earlier today, and we'll just quickly say it again. Your fear is like a guard dog. Now, a guard dog can be very useful for someone who's asleep. A dog which in the middle of the night will start barking if a burglar tries to get into your house. The dog will start barking and wake you up and alert you to the danger, right? So your dog is barking, 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 and you startle out of bed because you were asleep, but now you've been alerted to the danger. Your dog alerts you to the danger. And that's fine. But once you're awake, you don't need the dog to be barking anymore, number one. You can know the danger, or if you're awake already, you know of the danger. So a dog is useful to a blind person as a guide dog because the blind person is blind, and the guide dog will steer them around dangers. So in that sense, if you're blind or you're asleep, your consciousness has been impaired in some way. That dog is a faithful companion and a faithful servant in that sense. But let's go back to the barking dog who's barking at the burglar. He might not just be barking, he might be frothing at the mouth. He might be one of these big German Shepherds or Dobermans. But you're supposed to be the master of that dog. So what happens if you're afraid of your own dog? Your dog is barking and you become afraid of your own dog. This is what happens when we become afraid of our own fear. We become afraid of our egos. We fall into this trap where we have this shadow self. We have this dog which is supposed to be serving us. And if it's not serving us, if it's going off and doing its own thing and running wild like an animal around our grounds, and it's frothing at the mouth and it's barking like crazy, if we start to fear our shadow self, we increase the separation between the shadow self, the false self, and the true self. So this is what Carl Jung meant with the integration of the shadow self, is that we have to realize, we have to awaken to the fact that This shadow self, this false self, is like a dog. It should be serving us, and we need to get it under control. We need to tame it, train it, and to the degree that we can, eliminate from it all the wildness, all the animal ways that it threatens us, and instead have it serve us. So the elimination of egos, the Christ kicks out the moneylenders from the temple. And that is an allegory for the eradication of the psychological aggregates which make us accrue karma, because that's what a moneylender is, right? A moneylender gives you money, but with interest. So the psychological aggregates cause us to behave in ways that accrue karma. That's debt. That's karmic debt. We want to eliminate, we want to kick out of our temple those elements, those psychological aggregates, those egos, which cause us to behave in ways which accrues karmic debt. We don't, and the Great Reset is all about the forgiveness of sins, the forgiveness of debt, and the forgiveness of debt on the material plane in the physical world by the world bankers, where we reset the banking system and we eradicate all debt, and that the great financial reset, as above, so below. That great financial reset has to coincide with a great reset of karmic debt. And that's why the Christ descends to the earth, and why the Christ dies and descends into hell, in order to be able to pay that debt, for the humanity's debt, and forgive sin and negotiate sin. And Christ chases the moneylenders out of the temple. Ryu made another comment here. He said, it's funny how in the Dark Ages they used that design in a weaponized way, the panopticon, maximum security prison model. Oh yes, that's interesting. Yeah. All right. If there are no more questions or comments at this time, we're going to call it a night. We're not going to go 3 hours. And in fact, in the future, we may prefer to do what we did today, and do more live streams that are shorter in duration, and keep them shorter and more snappy and more punchy. And we will put into a rotation those 7 aspects that we talked about here tonight. And what we are going to do is break all of this out and break it down, and create separate talks and presentations for each of these 7, as we work through the writing of the book and the writing of these chapters. And we will put these 7 into a kind of circulation, where either we will do this on some kind of a rotation. We're not sure if we can do this on a 7-day-a-week rotation, where every single day we are presenting what we have written or what we have done in the last 24 hours. But if we were to do that, then maybe the time that we choose to do that may be 12 noon, high noon, because high noon, 12 o'clock at the top of the clock, right? And the 12 hours in the day. So if we do it at 12 noon, then our friends in Europe can listen in, our brothers and sisters in Europe, but also North America. And because all of our live streams, once they're online, they're available on Facebook and they're available on YouTube. So they don't go anywhere once they're there. And people can tune in and witness and participate in the ongoing progress of the Attlas project. Now, the thing about that is that if we do this in a regular rotation, then certain days will always be the same topics. So we may not be able to do it every day, and it may not be appropriate because some days, like for example, tomorrow we need to take a day off, deal with some technological issues. Our computer is infected with a virus and possibly our entire home network, and we have to get this worked out. So there's going to be some days where we just can't make any progress, and it doesn't make any sense for us to, do the live stream. So maybe we will keep it at sort of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we're just keep in that rotation, and just any progress that we've made along, we'll just pick and choose different topics as we've been doing, and it's all going to relate. It's all going to relate back. Everything that we talk about is going to fit within this archeon in one way or another. It's going to contribute to the Attlas project. It's going to contribute to the Great Reset. And so there will always be something of value for you here. And as you can see, our approach is supremely practical. We're talking about the Great Reset. We're talking about some esoteric principles and concepts, but we're talking about the Great Reset of humanity, and we're talking about resetting the board, ending the game, starting the new game. So, but we want to be practical, and we want to be able to always offer you practical, meaningful tools that you can use in your daily practice. So, especially along this this aspect of the psychology, and working on your own psychology, and working with the Alm of Life. So, so we have now presented the Attlas project in this way for 3 live streams in a row. So from here on in, we're going to return to our previous structure of just picking 1 or 2 topics and going through them, and whatever inspires us between now and the next live stream. So there will be no live stream tomorrow, Thursday, and probably the next one will be Friday at noon or Friday at 8 o'clock. But stay tuned, and we'll make an announcement accordingly. We'll have to see what happens with this computer of ours. We have to take it in and get it checked out, because we're fairly sure it's been hijacked. And we're also fairly sure that our credit cards have been hacked. We've had charges, miscellaneous charges put on our credit cards. We have to get that all worked out and sorted out, and that's going to take a great deal of time and energy. I mean, it's just exhausting just even thinking about it. Being on the phone with these technical support people with the credit card companies and everything else, and it's just not we're not looking forward to it. But this is these personal matters. Unfortunately, they're there. The Black Lodge creates them. They're obstacles standing in our way in order to hinder us and challenge us. They're just speed bumps. They're annoyances more than anything, and we have to take care of it. So we apologize for that, and we will, as we continue, as we said, we continue to progress. We will be doing these live streams on a regular basis, and we will also attempt to continue and go back to doing our short form videos, which are not live but prepared in advance on various different topics. And at some point, we will try to synthesize this presentation that we've been giving into a kind of short form video production that can be put online and on YouTube and on Facebook and shared, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So if there are no more questions or comments, okay, good night, Ryu, and good night, everyone. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again. We'll see you again soon.